Good morning, everybody. Hope you are well. It is March 31st. It is Tuesday. I remind myself of that all day long in situations like these where there's no difference between days. Day 19, I think, of the quarantine. And we only have at least 30 more days to go. So we're practically home. We got this. I did see big news today, one of my favorite days of the year. I looked out into our woods, and this is the first day that I can see shoots of green throughout. Not the trees yet, but the shrubs and things like that. Just little green leaves, the willow trees getting green. So there's hope, there's life, there are signs of summer and better days on the way. So welcome everybody. This is episode 4 of Coffee and Jesus Stuff. Got my 8 o'clock right here. And an open Bible. And what I want to do is with this time is take a look at just quick looks at Jesus stories and learn from him, and maybe give you a thought for your day. Morning, Shelby. Some productive spiritual growth during these down times. And I'm gonna, one second, because I'm realizing that I forgot. There we go. Look at that. I forgot to flip the screen. Okay. Yeah. That's better. Okay. I think I'm still live. There's a good chance that I'm still live. So, getting on with what we're talking about. We're just in the first couple chapters of Mark, one of the 4 Gospels, one of the biographies of Jesus. And Mark starts off. It's really important when you look at these Jesus stories that you get in a flow for what the author's doing. They're actually fairly sophisticated in the way they're written. And Mark in chapter 1 uses things like, he uses words to describe Jesus, or phrases like Son of God, Son of Man, and Christ. And all of those are God titles. They speak to the divinity of Jesus, and they show us that that God is walking among us, and then it frames how we watch, or how we listen to what he's saying next. And so Mark tells us, watch how God brings his kingdom, watch how God brings something new into the world as he interacts with people. Now, the first thing that we see Jesus does is he cleanses a leper. He reaches out and he actually touches a leper, versus speaking healing to him. He touches him, which is very scandalous. You didn't touch lepers because that made you unclean. So the first thing God does is he says, I don't care what your categories are for people. I'm going to interact with people. Then the next story we read is that Jesus forgives a paralytic and heals him, showing that he has the power and the authority to forgive sins, and that God is a forgiving kind of God. So he extends forgiveness. So he touches the unclean, then he extends forgiveness. Then he invites Levi, also called Matthew, a tax collector, and he invites this tax collector to be in his crew as one of his disciples, implying a kind of, hey, I'm here for you, I'm with you, I'm for you, to a tax collector, which was the lowest of the low. Good morning, Jackie. The lowest of the low on the religious totem pole. So Jesus embraces people. God embraces people of all different walks of life. And then morning Trish, the next thing we see Jesus do is he goes to a party, and the people here are just called sinners. They're just sinners. It's a party of sinners, and he eats with them, which expresses a kind of we're all in this together mentality. He doesn't distance himself from sinners. He eats with them. And already we see this conflict with Jesus and the religious authorities, the religious leaders called the Pharisees of his day. So Mark is saying, this is God come to earth to recategorize things, to reorder things, and it immediately produces conflict, not between him and people who think they're far from God. The conflict is between Jesus, God in the flesh, and people who think they're religious. Now, it really gets cooking here with this one, because we've seen that Jesus attacks sort of, I guess, what you'd call religious social categories. Who's in and who's out, sinners, and people right with God. He tears all that apart with his first few actions, by who he interacts with, who he forgives, things like that. Now, he's going to attack rituals. He's going to go after religious rituals. So this is where I think it starts to get really interesting as Jesus interacts. So let me read to you. I'm going to read to you from Mark, and we're going to start with 18. Mark 2, 18. Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, and people came and said to him, "Why do John's disciples and the Pharisees fast, and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples, Jesus, do not fast?" By fasting, we're talking about going without food. So just so you know, the ancient Jews used to fast for 2 days a week. They would go from sundown to sundown with no food 2 days a week. That was a part of their most important ritual, along with Sabbath at the end of the week. So John's disciples, John the Baptist's disciples, and the disciples of the Pharisees, they do this 2 day a week fast. Jesus' disciples don't, and they're questioning, why don't you make your disciples fast, Jesus? Now this is a great response, and should be really exciting for us if we don't like dead rituals, okay? Jesus says, what does he say? Jesus said to them, this is verse 19, "Can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day." Now, that probably sounds a little strange, but here's what Jesus is saying. The question on the table is, why don't your disciples fast? Jesus then tells a hypothetical story. He says, when there's a wedding party going on, when the groom is with the groomsmen, it's party time. There's no need for like sad rituals. When they're apart, then you'll need the ritual. Here's what Jesus is saying. Why would you fast and do a ritual to connect you with God when Jesus, God in the flesh, is right there, robe and sandals with you? He's saying there's no need for you to fast. There's no need for you to go through these rituals when I'm right here. What he's doing is he's sorting out the ends and the means. He's saying that rituals can be a means to an end, connection with God being the goal. But rituals are not the goal itself. The problem with religion is it often connects the ritual as the goal. Like spirituality is the ritual. Jesus says, no, the ritual is the means to get you connected with God. Now, here's what Jesus could have done, and this is what I love about Jesus' response. Jesus could have been like, he's standing like right there with him. He could have been like, "You fasting? Yeah, I love it when you fast. I love it. You feel that hunger? You getting that dull headache? Oh, I love it." Like, that's how God could have responded to the fast. But he doesn't. He's like, why are you wasting your time doing that when I'm right here? Now, fasting is a very useful tool to connect you with God. It shows discipline over your body. It frees up time during meals when you can pray instead of eat. But when God is standing right there with them, there was no need for that ritual. Now, here's the translation. Some of you, and and I talk with you, you might not be watching now, you might be watching the next couple days. Some of you talk about how you hate going to church, and your kids hate going to church. The sit, stand, kneel, the cold, lifeless. Learn from this. You're not placating God with lifeless ritual. God has no need for you to go through lifeless ritual. The rituals need to connect you with God. The rituals are a means to get you connected with God. If you think that you're going to church and it's impressing God that you're there miserable, that he gets a kick out of you being bored to death and the sacrifice that you're making through that misery, that he's looking down saying, oh, I'd love to watch you kneel and your knees hurt, and I'd love to watch you sing amen for 3 straight minutes. I love it. Love the misery. That's not what he's after. Those rituals, in the right context, can be life-giving. They really can. They can get you connected with God. But if you're in a cold, dead environment and getting nothing out of it, go somewhere where the service, where the rituals, where the routine of the morning lifts you up and gets you connected with God. I love to hear people say, church for me was always miserable. The rituals, the lifelessness, whatever. But now here in this environment, it's so meaningful. It's so uplifting. That's what rituals can do. That's what reading the Bible can do. That's what worshiping can do. That's what church can do if it's in the right environment. But if you're just going through lifeless, meaningless, joyless routine, God's not getting anything out of it. You're not getting anything out of it. So when Jesus says the bridegroom is with, or the groom is with his buddies, and there's a party now, there's no need for ritual. What he's saying is that ritual for the sake of ritual is useless. We're not with Jesus like we will be in heaven right now. So now, rituals can be a powerful tool to help you connect with God. But never get confused that ritual and religion is somehow an end in and of itself. That God gets anything out of you going through the motions, because he doesn't. Find things that matter, find things that get you connected with God, and use those, and they should bring joy and life to you. They should be powerful tools in your life to get you connected with God. And if you're in an environment where they're not, go find some place that is. Life is too short to waste your time with lifeless, draining rituals, thinking that you're placating God, because you're absolutely not. So do you see the way Jesus attacked rituals just for the sake of ritual? And he continues to do things like that. Tomorrow, we'll talk about Jesus attacking rules. So first he attacks religious social construct, who's in and who's out. Then he attacks rituals. And tomorrow he's going to tear down religious rules. And this is why there's so much conflict between Jesus and religious leaders. But people who are far from God, people who are tired of religion, they love Jesus. They can't get in. He's irresistible to them. We'll learn more tomorrow in episode 5. Enjoy the day.